Like if we promise a feature in July, we're going to deliver it in July. I think at some point, English might even replace the programming languages that we have today, right? You just prompt what it needs to do.
Everybody, welcome to the Devico Breakfast Bar. Here we speak with different people involved in the business landscape, share their expertise, delve into the latest tech trends, and explore the ins and outs of IT outsourcing. I'm Oleg Sadikov, and today I'm excited to have Bram Wiepjes, founder and CEO at Baserow. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss new episodes. Hi Bram, and thanks for joining me today.
Hi Oleg, thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Let's start our podcast with a little blitz. I start a sentence and you continue.
Sure.
Entrepreneurship gave me
a lot of exciting challenges, I think.
Entrepreneurship deprived
Of a lot of free time.
My main superpower is
Software development.
My main weakness is
Working with a lot of people at the same time.
When I'm afraid I
Close.
You have had a diverse background as a full-stack developer for companies like Nelson, Shonen, BB. How did those early experiences shape your understanding in software development and business needs and led you to the no-code space?
Well, that's an interesting question, actually, that I think needs a little bit more context. So when I was like 13 years old, I taught myself how to code, actually. I wanted to make some money with it at some point. I was like very overconfident of my skills. So I put out this advertisement and did some small, tiny projects here and there. But later on, I got in touch with a local web development agency, and they actually decided to hire me for the summer. Eventually, I stayed there for like 3 years next to my studies. But I learned a lot about like professional software development. Since then, I've worked for various agencies, for startups, for large organizations. And yeah, I learned a lot about software development there. But yeah, I think I've always been a bit drawn towards like no-code like tools because it gives like people, like non-technical people, the power to actually build something, but also technical people to ship things and build things much faster. So when I was like 21 years old, a while ago already, I did like this website builder startup, made all the beginner mistakes that you can make, but I think that was kind of like my introduction in the no-code space. I just wanted to build something like that. It's like, hey, why not build a company around it? It completely failed, obviously, but learned a lot from it. So yeah, I think that was kind of like the first moment where I saw like the power of no-code tools, whether it's like a website builder or a database builder or anything. I think that was kind of like the first intro into that.
What inspired you to create Baserow actually? A gap in the no-code that you felt needed to be filled or something else?
Yeah, no, this is also an interesting question because I think it's a combination of things. Like me with a software development background and liking startups and like to do side projects. It was kind of like a combination. At that point, I wanted to do like a new side project. I learned about Airtable around that period and I was really amazed by that kind of tool. So it was more like a combination of these kind of things where I thought, I want to build something similar as Airtable. I want to do like a side project, and I thought like, hey, maybe I want to build a company out of it at some point, but I'm also completely fine if I don't. So when I got started with it, I thought, hey, Airtable's like 8 years ahead. I need to do something a bit differently. But that's one of the reasons why I decided to make it open source, because that allows us to different users and customers to actually use the product. So yeah, I think it originated a little bit from that combination. And when I worked a bit more on the project, I realized, well, there actually is a gap in terms of like open source no-code tools. And so yeah, I got more excited and I saw gaining traction with the tool. More people were getting excited about it. So I saw, hey, there's a huge gap to fill. And later also learned that's especially in like the enterprise market, right? The enterprise market, they typically store privacy sensitive data. So they're not that keen on storing that in a SaaS tool in the US, for example. But if you have like an open source product, they can self-host it, install it in their own data center, and then go from there. So there's there was actually a big need in the market for a tool like Baserow.
Why open source? What motivated you to do it?
Yeah, so I wanted to do an open source project from scratch always. And I thought, yeah, okay, Airtable's a big player. If I make Baserow open source, then I can sell to that unique portion, to that portion in the market. So it was a bit from like a commercial perspective, but also wanting to contribute back because I'm using a lot of open source software myself as well and contribute something back to that space.
What were some of the earliest hurdles you faced while launching Baserow?
So very early stage, I would say it's difficult if you start a company to balance like having an income and actually spending a lot of time on a project like this, because it costs a lot of time to develop something like this. So yeah, if you need, in the beginning, it was kind of like working in the evenings and in the weekends. When I launched the first version, I saw a lot of traction happening. So that's when I decided to switch to like part-time freelancing just to cover my living expenses. I did that for like 2 days a week. Didn't have much money to spend at that point, but it did allow me to spend much more time on Baserow. At some point, I raised some funding, of course, and that allowed me to switch to the project full time. So that problem was kind of solved. And I think some other problems, like even after raising funding, is also like launching features on time, right? I know within software development, this is always a difficult topic. Like people will say, oh, we're going to finish this feature next month. And then has been some bugs that you have to solve.
That feature is not there yet.
Exactly. Yeah. So I really wanted to deliver on those features in the early days. Like if we promise a feature in July, we're going to deliver it in July. So that also means like a lot of extra work, like in the evenings, in the weekends, just making sure that we can actually ship that. I think that gave us a really good name out there that we actually deliver on all of our promises. But yeah, those are definitely some hurdles that we ran into in the beginning.
If you could give your younger self one piece of advice before starting Baserow?
Yeah, it's always a tricky question, right? To compare, okay, what did I know then and what do I know now? But I think one of the things maybe during the period when I would just raise like funding, I think like listen more closely to the investors that we have. I'm also a bit stubborn. If they say, oh, I recommend doing something, I recommend doing A, I want to be 100% behind that decision before I'm actually going to do that. And I remember one of the things they told me like, hey, and that was actually before I raised investment. This investor, First Binet, I was in contact with them and I was still deciding whether or not I want to like bootstrap the business or actually bring on venture capital funding. And they said to me, well, take the funding because you're having success right now. You're just by yourself doing this part-time. And if you don't take this money, you're going to hire a team, someone else will, and they will beat you to it. I'm really glad that I took that advice at that point, because that happened later down the line. There's more competition in the open source no-code space nowadays, but they gave a lot more advice, and I'm glad that they, sometimes I didn't, sometimes I did, but in the end, usually they were right. And I think one of the other advice that I would give is move faster in terms of like hiring. I didn't have that much experience like hiring a team myself and bringing everyone on board. So I was moving very slowly with the interview processes. That actually cost me some really good candidates at that point, because I was just waiting too long, didn't understand how the market was. So definitely that one, like move faster with hiring and listen more closely to your investors.
With so many players entering the no-code space, what trends should startup watch closely to stay relevant?
Yeah, that's also a very good question. I think one of the things that we are seeing is like greater adoption by enterprise, because more no-code tools are kind of like available to them. So yeah, you can expect more enterprise features in terms of a trend. Scalability as well. If you look at a couple of years back, no-code tools, maybe a few of them, but they were quite technical, were not scalable in terms of how much data you can store in there, how much visitors you can have in your app, how many users. That is definitely changing, and that's something that we are doing with Baserow as well. We're focusing a lot on scalability, like having a lot of data, allowing a lot of users to collaborate in that platform. But I think the most obvious one is AI, of course, because AI is going to be an enabler to build faster and better with no-code tools. So you see like AI assistants popping up, strong integrations with AI systems that are kind of like enhancing the no-code tools as we know them. or introducing complete new tools that work directly with AI, which are also a no-code tool, like a Lovable, for example. Like it's not like a traditional no-code tool with with the database or an application builder. No, it's more like something new where you prompt and it just gives you an application, basically. So in that space I think that's the biggest one, obviously.
How do you see the role of no-code changing, especially with the rise of AI and automation?
So I think no code and AI are perfectly complementary, right? And in fact, I think if you have like a good conversational AI assistant or an AI agent, that will actually help to increase no-code adoption. And that is because what you see with a lot of people, like a lot of no-code tools are aimed at like less technical or non-technical people. But if they create an account or start using the software for the first time, it can be a bit overwhelming. Like, oh, but how do I build a project management system? Or how do I do X, Y, Z? You have like templates that will solve that to a certain degree. But I think with AI assistants who are like built in a no-code tool, I think that's going to be like a really powerful combination, right? If you, for example, take a look at a Lovable, which is kind of like where you prompt it and it gives you a tool. What I hear from a lot of people is that it gets you like 80% there, and that's super impressive. But that last 10-20% to get to a fully working solution is actually quite difficult, because the people who use it, they don't know how to code. What does Lovable do? It generates code, so you can't change it in the end. So I think if you have a combination of no-code tools with a strong assistant in there, a similar kind of like conversational prompting what you would do, and the AI agent would build it directly in a no-code tool for you, it kind of gives you like a starting point, like, oh, that's how I solve my project management use case, or that's how I solve my very specific solution. And then you start to recognize elements in the no-code interface that are familiar to you. And then from there, you will take it from that 80% to the full 100%, because then you have an actual interface that you can use as a non-technical person. So yeah, I think it's going to strongly complement each other and make each other better in that case.
Makes sense. AI is automate more technical tasks. How do you think the roles of product development and data management will evolve?
Maybe in like the short term, I think like what I see right now is in terms of like software development, I don't think AI is there yet to build like a complete software solution or a new feature in like a large code base, for example, right? We've tried out a lot of things at Baserow to ship features faster, but we have a huge code base with a lot of dependencies and rules and systems like working together. Like getting an AI to contribute like a full feature there, it's not there yet. So I think short term, what I see that it's like really good at is repetitive tasks. So for example, we have like data syncs in Baserow, to give you an example, and a data sync can sync with Jira issues or Postgres database or many other data sources, but we've kind of like abstracted that code to easily add more of these data syncs. If you ask an AI to build like a new data sync, it performs really, really well actually, because it has a lot of examples, it's abstracted out there. So that kind of works, right? But I see it now more as like a tool for developers, right? Like an IDE. If you have like an IDE, you can develop faster because you have syntax highlighting and things like that. I think AI is in kind of like a similar phase, much more powerful maybe, but it will enhance your skills. But you can't say to a non-technical person, here is like an AI model, build an application. Like it's not there yet. Maybe in a couple of years, maybe longer, maybe shorter, I don't know. But it is going to get there at some point. I'm pretty sure of that. But yeah, I think at some point English might even replace the programming languages that we have today, right? You just prompt what it needs to do. But I think that's quite far out. And then for now, I think these models will get better as a tool.
Are there specific regions or countries that you find particularly promising for tech talent?
No. So Baserow is like a remote-only company. So that means everyone works remotely. We don't have an office or anything. So I've interviewed candidates from many European countries, because that's where we typically hire developers. My experience is that there in every region and every country has promising tech talent. Yeah, so every country has good developers and bad developers. So I don't see like specific regions where it's like, oh, that's where they have really good developers or something like that. No, it's like it's very diverse and spread across every country, I think, globally. But yeah, I do think it makes it much easier to hire if you're like a remote company, right? Basically, we don't hire globally, but we hire in Europe our developers. So we have a much broader talent pool to hire people in. But it brings also some downsides, because if I hire someone in France and Italy and Germany and the Netherlands, every country has its own different rules in terms of like days off, taxes, and some other rules that you might not even know of. So I think like tools like a remote.com or like a Deal, they really help navigating that landscape, but it's also quite costly. It costs quite a lot of money.
What are your thoughts on advantages and disadvantages of IT outsourcing?
So I don't have that much experience with it, to be honest. But personally, if I hire someone in the team, I want them to stick around for as long as possible, right? Because if you talk about developers or any other role, people build a lot of like knowledge, whether it's about the code base, about the company, about the people who work there. And if we were to outsource development to like a remote team, maybe to ship some features faster or to do some other things, and that is for a shorter or temporary period, then that actually means that in the end, I think it's going to cost us more, because you kind of lose that institutional knowledge within the organization. The work might not be on par with like the quality standards that we have. And in the end, we need to maintain it anyway. So it might be cheaper in the short run, but in the long run, I think in some cases it could actually be more expensive.
As we wrap up our conversation, what advice would you give to companies considering IT outsourcing but concerned about losing control?
I think it's perfectly fine to outsource, but I think that there's like two ways of how you can outsource something, right? You could have like an in-house team and you want extra capacity on that front. I think that's the best form of outsourcing, because then you can hire an additional team. Your internal team can ensure that your quality standards are met, that they review certain changes that are being done, so that the knowledge like remains in-house even after the team leaves, because sometimes you need to build like an internal product you need to build like a new product. And yeah, initially it takes more time, and after that it's just maintenance. I think in such scenarios it can be a really good fit. Or the other way around, where you outsource the development and maintenance without having the knowledge in-house, which can also be fine, but then you would want to make sure that you have like a long-term commitment, I think, with those kind of organizations, because you need to find a good firm that you can work together with. They need to have like the right technical knowledge, and you kind of like, okay, you take care of it, you can fix it for us. I think that's also fine as long as you're working with like a good firm and you're okay with doing it their way, basically. So yeah, I think it depends a little bit on how you're doing that, but my recommendation would be to also have like an in-house team. A small team could be, to make sure that the knowledge remains in-house, I think.
Bram, thanks for your time. Thanks for joining me today. Wonderful conversation. You're an experienced technical person who became a businessman. I really appreciate your time, and I'm sure that my auditory will enjoy listening to the podcast.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for having me, Oleg. It was a pleasure to be here, and yeah, thank you so much.
If you enjoy our discussion and want to stay updated on future episodes, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. That way you will not miss out on the latest insights and conversations from the Devico Breakfast Bar. See you in the next episode.